Here are the next 10 keywords in Level 9. Word 31. Dilatory. D-I-L-A-T-O-R-Y. Delaying, causing or intended to cause delay. Also slow, tardy, characterized by delay or procrastination. Dilatory comes through the Latin dilator, a delayer, procrastinator, loiterer, from dilatus, the past participle of the verb differe, to delay, put off. In current usage, dilatory has two senses. First, it may mean causing or intended to cause delay. The purpose of a dilatory tactic is to delay action. The aim of a dilatory policy is to gain time. And unforeseen circumstances may have a dilatory effect on a project, causing postponement or delay. Second, dilatory may mean characterized by delay or procrastination. When you put off doing something until the last minute, you are being dilatory. When someone responds to your urgent telephone message 2 days later, that's a dilatory response. And if you pay a bill a month after it's due, that's a dilatory payment. Word 32. Vilify. V-I-L-I-F-Y. To defame, slander. Attack with vicious, abusive language. Synonyms of vilify include to disparage, denigrate, stigmatize, malign, revile, vituperate, calumniate, and traduce. Antonyms include to praise, commend, laud, extol, glorify, eulogize, and venerate. Vilify comes ultimately from the Latin vilis, cheap, worthless. The word vile, in one of its senses, means of little value, and vilify was once used to mean to make vile, render worthless, cheapen, degrade, but this sense is now obsolete. In current usage, vilify means to take cheap shots, make degrading or defamatory statements, render vile or worthless by attacking with vicious, abusive language. Vilify is most often used of persons, but it may also apply to things. A racist may vilify a certain ethnic group. A xenophobe may vilify foreigners or a particular foreign nation. Defenders of liberty vilify abuses of human rights. And in America, the inalienable right of free speech allows a citizen to vilify the president, and most citizens seem to take advantage of that right at one time or another. The corresponding noun is vilification, which means either the act of vilifying or a deliberate, vicious, and defamatory verbal assault. Politicians and celebrities often find themselves subjected to vilification in the media. Word 33. Phlegmatic. P-H-L-E-G-M-A-T-I-C. Calm and unemotional, having a sluggish, apathetic temperament. Difficult to move to emotion or action. Phlegmatic comes from the Greek phlegmatikos, pertaining to the humor phlegm, spelled P-H-L-E-G-M. This phlegm is different from that slimy stuff you cough up when you have a cold. In ancient and medieval physiology, there were 4 humors, or bodily fluids, thought to determine a person's health or disposition. Blood, also known as the sanguine humor, which made you upbeat, cheerful, and confident. Choler, also known as yellow bile, which made you passionate or irascible. Melancholy, also known as black bile, which made you gloomy or dejected. And phlegm, which made you either cool and indifferent or dull and sluggish. From this humor phlegm, we inherit the adjective phlegmatic, which by derivation means full of phlegm. Hence, having a sluggish, apathetic temperament, calm and unemotional. Word 34. Adventitious. Adventitious. Accidentally or casually acquired, not belonging naturally to something. Associated by chance, not inherent or integral. Synonyms of adventitious include foreign, extrinsic, incidental, extraneous, fortuitous, and supervenient. Adventitious comes from the Latin adventitious, which means coming from without or from abroad, and by derivation is related to the word advent, which means an arrival, specifically the arrival or birth of Jesus Christ, or the season preceding the celebration of his birth. Adventitious suggests something added or imposed from without, something external or extrinsic that is accidentally or casually acquired. Adventitious information is additional and often unrelated information that you acquire casually or by chance in the course of investigating something. Adventitious blindness is caused by an accident as opposed to blindness occurring at birth. Adventitious income or wealth is fortuitously acquired and comes to you from some source other than wages or an. Word 35. Desiccated. Desiccated. Dried or dried up. Dehydrated. Deprived of moisture. The adjective desiccated is also the past participle of the verb to desiccate, to dry thoroughly. Both words come from the Latin desiccare, to dry completely. Desiccated may apply to food that has been preserved by drying or dehydration, such as fish, cereal, soup, or fruit. It may apply literally to anything that has been thoroughly dried or deprived of moisture, as a desiccated plant, a desiccated mummy, or a steak desiccated on the barbecue. It may also be used figuratively of something that is dried up or deprived of vital juices, as a desiccated affection, a desiccated culture, or a desiccated mind. The corresponding noun is desiccation, the act of drying or dehydrating. Word 36. Comity. Comity. Courtesy, civility, politeness, respectful and considerate behavior. Comity comes through the Latin comitas, courtesy, friendliness, from comus, courteous, kind, polite. Comity may be used of courteous relations between spouses, roommates, neighbors, co-workers, and so on, but it is perhaps most often used in the expression comity of nations, which means courteous and friendly relations between nations involving recognition and respect for each other's laws and institutions. Word 37. Specious. Specious. Appearing to be true, genuine, or correct, but actually false or deceptive. Superficially reasonable or just, but not so in reality. Specious comes through Middle English from the Latin speciosus, beautiful, splendid, handsome. Speciosus comes in turn from species, outward appearance, and the verb specere, to look at. By derivation, something specious has an outward appearance that is beautiful, splendid, or handsome to look upon, but that underneath is false, deceptive, or flawed. In current usage, we speak of a specious argument, specious reasoning, a specious excuse, or a specious answer, meaning that these things seem reasonable, genuine, or true on the surface, but in reality they are intended to mislead or deceive. Specious and plausible are close in meaning, but not quite synonymous. Webster's New International Dictionary, 2nd edition, explains that specious implies a fair appearance assumed with intent to deceive. That is plausible, which is superficially reasonable or pleasing, with or without deceit. The third edition of the American Heritage Dictionary also contains a helpful usage note that says, "A specious argument is not simply a false one, but one that has the ring of truth." There is a certain contradiction in hearing an argument described as obviously specious or specious on the face of things. If the fallaciousness is apparent, the argument was probably not plausible sounding to begin with. Word 38. Noisome. Noisome. Harmful to health or well-being. Unwholesome. Dangerous. Destructive. Also, foul-smelling. Offensive. Disgusting. Synonyms of noisome in the sense of harmful to health or well-being include injurious, ruinous, deleterious, noxious, baneful, malign, and pernicious. Synonyms of noisome in the sense of foul-smelling, offensive, disgusting include rank, rancid, putrid, fetid, malodorous, and mephitic. Antonyms of noisome in both senses include salutary and salubrious. Noisome comes from Middle English and by derivation means harmful, injurious, unwholesome, as a noisome pestilence, a noisome habit, or noisome beliefs. That has been the meaning of the word since it came into the language in the 14th century. Perhaps because it is related to the verb to annoy, by the 16th century, noisome also came to mean foul-smelling, offensive, disgusting, as a noisome stench or noisome breath. Word 39. Calumny. Calumny. Defamation of character. Slander. A false and malicious statement or accusation meant to injure a person's reputation. Synonyms of calumny include backbiting, denigration, obloquy, and vilification. The noun calumny, the adjective calumnious, and the verb to calumniate all come through the Latin calumniare, to accuse falsely, from calumnia, a trick. By derivation, and in current usage, calumny means a tricky, nasty, false, and malicious accusation designed to hurt someone's reputation. In 1751, Samuel Johnson wrote that to spread suspicion, to invent calumnies, to propagate scandal requires neither labor nor courage. And 150 years earlier, in Hamlet, William Shakespeare wrote, "Be thou as chaste as ice, as pure as snow, thou shalt not." Word 40. Excoriate. Excorriate. To strip, scrape, or tear off the skin, hence to rebuke or denounce harshly and severely. Synonyms of excoriate in the sense of stripping off the skin include abrade, chafe, scalp, gall, and flay. Flay. Synonyms of excoriate in the sense of rebuking or denouncing harshly include censure, castigate, and vituperate. To excoriate, which comes from Latin, and to flay, which comes from Anglo-Saxon, are close in meaning. Both mean by derivation to strip off the skin, and in modern usage both have also come to mean to rebuke or denounce harshly, to attack or criticize in a severe and scathing manner. Flay also means to whip or lash the skin. If you flay an animal, you either strip off its skin or whip the hide off it. If you flay a person, you whip that person either literally or figuratively, with harsh and scathing words. If you excoriate an animal, you strip off its skin. If you excoriate your knee, you have skinned your knee. You have an abrasion. And if you excoriate a person, you figuratively strip that person's skin off by delivering a harsh or severe rebuke or denunciation. The corresponding noun is excoriation.
Let's review the 10 key words you've just learned by playing one of these definitions doesn't fit the word. I will say a word followed by 3 apparent synonyms, but only 2 of those 3 words or phrases will be true synonyms. 1 will be unrelated in meaning. You have to decide which one of the 3 ostensible synonyms or phrases doesn't fit the word. Are you ready? Here we go. Dilatory means delaying, unwilling, procrastinating. Unwilling doesn't fit. Dilatory means delaying, causing or intended to cause delay. Also, slow, tardy, characterized by delay or procrastination. To vilify means to expose, slander, defame. Expose doesn't fit. To vilify means to defame, slander, attack with vicious, abusive language. Phlegmatic means calm and unemotional, sluggish and apathetic, tedious and boring. Tedious and boring doesn't fit. Phlegmatic means calm and unemotional, having a sluggish, apathetic temperament, difficult to move to emotion or action. Adventitious means accidentally acquired, not belonging naturally, happening at the right time. Happening at the right time doesn't fit. Adventitious means accidentally or casually acquired, not belonging naturally to something, associated by chance, not inherent or integral. Desiccated means dehydrated, dried up, defunct. Defunct doesn't fit. Defunct means dead, extinct. Desiccated means dried or dried up, dehydrated, deprived of moisture. Comity means courtesy, generosity, civility. Generosity doesn't fit. Comity means courtesy, civility, politeness, respectful and considerate behavior. Specious means apparently true, superficially reasonable, unquestionably correct. Unquestionably correct doesn't fit. Specious means appearing to be true, genuine, or correct, but actually false or deceptive. Superficially reasonable or just, but not so in reality. Noisome means harmful, foul-smelling, unmanageable. Unmanageable doesn't fit. Noisome means harmful to health or well-being, unwholesome, dangerous, destructive. Also, foul-smelling, offensive, disgusting. Calumny means defamation of character, a terrible mistake, a false and malicious statement. A terrible mistake doesn't fit. Calumny means defamation of character, slander, a false and malicious statement or accusation meant to injure a person's reputation. To excoriate means to reject completely, rebuke harshly, denounce severely. Reject completely doesn't fit. Excoriate means to strip, scrape, or tear off the skin, hence to rebuke or denounce harshly and severely. That concludes the review for this section.
Are you weary of all these difficult words? Have I desiccated your brain with adventitious verbal information? Has your routine of listening and reviewing become dilatory? If you answered yes to any of those questions, then I think you will appreciate Word 41, lassitude. Lassitude. Weariness, fatigue. A weak or exhausted state or feeling. A sluggish relaxation of body or mind. Synonyms of lassitude include listlessness, lethargy, debility, indolence, inertia, enervation, torpor, and languor. Languor. Would you like an ultra-grandiloquent synonym for lassitude? How about acetancy? Acetancy, spelled Oscitancy, comes through the Latin oscitare, to yawn, gape, open the mouth, from the Latin os, the mouth. Literally, acetancy means the act of yawning or gaping. Figuratively, it means sleepiness, drowsiness, or sluggishness. The Latin os, meaning the mouth, is the source of another delightful grandiloquent word that is entirely unrelated to this discussion. But you don't mind if I'm desultory, do you? As I mentioned in the discussion of discursive, word 50 of level 6, desultory means skipping or leaping from one subject to another in a disconnected way. At any rate, this Latin os, the mouth, is also the source of the unusual English word osculation, spelled Osculation. Osculation denotes a pleasant act, something we all enjoy. With that clue, and knowing that this act has something to do with the mouth, can you guess what osculation means? If you're thinking the act of kissing, then you are a sagacious word sleuth indeed. Now let's get back to our keyword, lassitude, which comes from the Latin lassitudo, weariness, exhaustion. In modern usage, lassitude denotes a weak or exhausted state or feeling, a sluggish relaxation of body or mind. Surfeiting yourself at the dinner table can cause lassitude, and on sultry summer days we often experience lassitude. The words fatigue, weariness, and lassitude are close in meaning. Fatigue usually is the result of physical or mental exertion. You feel fatigue after 10 or 12 hours of assiduous labor. According to the Century Dictionary, weariness is the result of less obvious causes, as long sitting or standing in one position, importunity from others, delays, and the like. Fatigue and weariness are natural conditions, says the Century, from which one easily recovers by rest. Lassitude is the result of greater fatigue or weariness than one can well bear, and may be of the nature of ill health. The word, however, may be used in a lighter sense. To illustrate that lighter sense, the Century quotes these lines from the 18th century British poet, essayist, and physician John Armstrong. Happy he whose toil has o'er his languid, powerless limbs diffused a pleasing word 42. Traduce. Traduce. To publicly disgrace or humiliate by making false and malicious statements. To make a mockery of. Expose to public ridicule or contempt. Synonyms of traduce include defame, slander, denigrate, malign, vituperate, calumniate, and vilify, word 32 of level 9. Traduce comes from the Latin traducere, to lead across or lead in front of others. Hence, to exhibit as a spectacle, expose to ridicule, disgrace or humiliate in public. In modern usage, traduce applies chiefly to making false, malicious, and humiliating statements about people, as to traduce someone's honor, or a scathing editorial that traduces the mayor. Those gossipy newspapers with the sensational, ridiculous headlines that you see in the supermarket checkout line specialize in scandalous stories that traduce well-known people. The noun traducement means the act of traducing, and a traducer is a person who traduces, who makes false, malicious, humiliating statements. Word 43. Dishabille. D-I-S-H-A-B-I-L-L-E. The state of being partly clothed, partial undress. Dishabille may also mean the state of being casually or carelessly dressed, as in one's nightclothes or lounging attire. Dishabille comes from a French verb meaning to undress, which explains why it has all those silent letters. Dishabille entered English in the late 1600s, and as you can imagine, the word usually has a slightly sexy or titillating connotation. Here are a few examples cited in the Oxford English Dictionary, which specializes in displaying the language in historical dishabille. From 1684, to surprise his mistress in dishabille. From 1708, what would she give now to be in this dishabille in the open air? From 1796, his lady made 1,000 apologies for being caught in such a dishabille. From 1861, the easy, confidential intercourse of her dishabille in the boudoir. And from 1885, the shortcomings of English costume pale before the dishabille of the Dutch colonial ladies. Little could the writer of that last example have imagined the sometimes shocking dishabille, partial undress, that is commonplace in the worlds of entertainment and publishing today. And now, seeing as we've just discussed a rather prurient word, by the way, prurient, spelled P-R-U-R-I-E-N-T, word 44. Saturnalia. S-A-T-U-R-N-A-L-I-A. An orgy, licentious merrymaking, unrestrained revelry. Saturnalia, spelled with a capital S, denotes the 7-day festival of Saturn celebrated in December by the ancient Romans. According to Brewer's Dictionary of Phrase and Fable, the Saturnalia was a time of licensed disorder and misrule. During its continuance, no public business could be transacted, the law courts were closed, the schools kept holiday, no war could be commenced, and no malefactor punished. That week of abandon in ancient Rome has led to a second sense of the word. Saturnalia, spelled with a small s, means any period or occasion of unrestrained revelry or licentious merrymaking, hence an orgy. Among American college students, the Saturnalia is celebrated during the vernal equinox and goes by the name of spring break. Word 45. Extirpate. E-X-T-I-R-P-A-T-E. To pull or dig up by the roots, root out, exterminate, abolish or destroy completely. Although extirpate means to root out, it has stayed close to its roots, for it comes from the Latin extirpare, to tear up by the roots, which comes in turn from ex, meaning out, and stirps, which means the stem and roots of a plant. The word may be used literally, as to extirpate a tree, or figuratively, as to extirpate evil or a heterodox belief. Extirpate has two close synonyms, eradicate and deracinate, which is spelled D-E-R-A-C-I-N-A-T-E. Both these verbs come from the Latin radix, the root of a plant. By derivation and in modern usage, eradicate and deracinate also mean to pull up by the roots, uproot, and so to obliterate, annihilate, get rid of completely. Deracinate suggests a violent uprooting or annihilation. You can deracinate your hair. A despotic government can deracinate dissent. and a war can deracinate a population. Eradicate suggests resistance from the thing being uprooted or destroyed. Campaigns to eradicate drug abuse and organized crime often fall short of expectations. Extirpate suggests the intentional uprooting or extermination of something deeply entrenched. Self-styled defenders of society, like the zealous anti-vice crusader Anthony Comstock, are always on the lookout for some pernicious influence to extirpate: obscenity, drugs, subversives, heretics, or heterodox beliefs. The corresponding noun is extirpation. Word 46. Flagitious. Flagitious. Extremely wicked, shamefully and scandalously criminal, vice-ridden, or corrupt. Synonyms of flagitious include atrocious, egregious, heinous, diabolical, nefarious, odious, and execrable. Flagitious comes through the Latin flagitiosus, shameful, disgraceful, infamous, from flagitium, a shameful crime, disgraceful action. Flagitious may be used of persons who are grossly wicked and guilty of atrocious crimes or vices. For example, in different ways and on a different scale, Jack the Ripper and Joseph Stalin were both flagitious monsters. Flagitious may also be used of actions or things to mean shamefully wicked, villainous, or evil, as a flagitious crime, a flagitious obsession, flagitious thoughts. The Holocaust was one of the most flagitious events in history. Word 47. Peripatetic. Peripatetic. Walking about, going from place to place on foot. Synonyms of peripatetic include ambulating and itinerant. Peripatetic comes from Greek and means literally walking about. When spelled with a capital P, peripatetic refers to the ancient Greek school of philosophy founded by Aristotle, who expounded his theories while strolling in the Lyceum in Athens. When spelled with a small p, peripatetic means walking about, traveling on foot, as peripatetic exercise, a peripatetic police officer, or a grassroots political campaign that succeeded because of the peripatetic efforts of volunteers. Peripatetic may also be used as a noun to mean a peripatetic person, a pedestrian or itinerant, someone who walks or moves about on foot. Word 48. Cachinnate. Cachinnate. To laugh loudly and immoderately. Laugh convulsively or hysterically. To chuckle, giggle, cackle, chortle, titter, snicker, and snigger all suggest moderate, restrained, or self-conscious laughter. To guffaw suggests loud, boisterous, unrestrained laughter. To cachinnate takes the joke one step further. When you cachinnate, you shake with laughter, split your sides. Can you think of the last joke you heard that made you cachinnate? The verb to cachinnate comes from the Latin cachinare, to laugh aloud. The corresponding noun is cachinnation, immoderate, convulsive, or hysterical laughter. My earnest hope is that at least once in the course of this Let's Get Serious Word Power program, something I say will catch your funny bone off guard and induce a cachination. Word 49. Manumit. M-A-N-U-M-I-T. To set free, liberate, emancipate, deliver from slavery or bondage. Synonyms of manumit include unshackle, unfetter, enfranchise, and disenthrall. Antonyms include enslave, enthrall, subjugate, shackle, fetter, manacle, and trammel, Tramel. The verb to manumit comes through Middle English and Old French from the Latin manumittere, to free a slave, which comes in turn from manus, the hand, and mittere, to send, let go. To manumit, to emancipate, and to enfranchise are close in meaning. According to the Century Dictionary, to enfranchise is to bring into freedom or into civil rights. In the 20th century, American women gained the right to vote, gained economic and professional influence, and in many other ways became enfranchised. To emancipate is to free from a literal or figurative slavery. You can emancipate someone from bondage or emancipate someone's mind with knowledge. To manumit has often been used interchangeably with emancipate, but it usually suggests a literal deliverance from bondage or slavery. Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation manumitted American slaves. If you get fired from a crummy job, consider yourself manumitted. Word 50. Expiation. Expiation. Atonement. Reparation for a sin, crime, or offense. Expiation comes from the Latin expiare, to atone for, purify, engage in a ritual cleansing. The corresponding verb is expiate, to atone for, make amends for. Have you done anything wrong lately? Alienated a loved one? Offended a coworker? Told a lie? Broken a law? If you're feeling guilty about anything, if you have a compunction, a twinge of regret caused by an uneasy conscience, then Dr. Elster has the verbal cure for you. Expiation, the act of atonement or reparation for a wrong done. Depending on the nature and severity of your offense, your expiation may require an apology, a punishment, or the wearing of sackcloth and ashes.
Let's review the 10 key words you've just learned. This time, I'm going to give you the review word followed by 3 words or phrases, and you decide which of those 3 words or phrases comes nearest the meaning of the review word. Are you ready? Let's begin. Does lassitude mean weariness, restraint, or freedom? Lassitude means weariness, fatigue, a weak or exhausted state or feeling, a sluggish relaxation of body or mind. Does traduce mean to compel by force, make false and malicious statements, or to infer from evidence? Traduce means to publicly disgrace or humiliate by making false and malicious statements, to make a mockery of, expose to public ridicule or contempt. Is a person in dishabille dirty, partly clothed, or at a loss for what to say or do? Dishabille means the state of being partly clothed, partial undress. Is a Saturnalia a feast, a diversion, or an orgy? A Saturnalia is an orgy, licentious merrymaking, unrestrained revelry. Does extirpate mean to pull up by the roots, make an educated guess, or keep away from? To extirpate means to pull or dig up by the roots, root out, exterminate, abolish or destroy completely. Is something flagitious, very insulting, totally unnecessary, or extremely wicked? Something flagitious is extremely wicked, shamefully and scandalously criminal, vice-ridden, or corrupt. Does peripatetic mean taking one's time, walking about, or asking questions? Peripatetic means walking about, going from place to place on foot. Does cachinnate mean to object, to ridicule, or to laugh loudly? To cachinnate means to laugh loudly and immoderately, laugh convulsively or hysterically. Does manumit mean to excuse, to liberate, or to allow? To manumit means to set free, liberate, emancipate, deliver from slavery or bondage. Is expiation acceptance, rejection, or atonement? Expiation is atonement, reparation for a sin, crime, or offense. That concludes the review for this section and for Level 9. Remember to listen to this entire level again at least once before moving on to the last level.
Let's wind up Level 9 with another vocabulary quiz involving only one word. Effete, spelled E-F-F-E-T-E. Do you know the precise meaning of this word? Here are 5 possible synonyms. Does effete mean womanly, worn out, elegant, snobbish, or pseudo-intellectual? Once again, womanly, worn out, elegant, snobbish, or pseudo-intellectual. Final Jeopardy music, please. All right, time's up. The answer is worn out. Did you get it right? Effete comes from the Latin effetus, worn out by bearing children, unable to produce offspring, which comes in turn from ex, meaning out, and fetus, meaning productive. Effete formerly was used of animals to mean past bearing, and of soil or land to mean barren. These applications are now uncommon, though not archaic, and today correct usage most often employs effete in the figurative sense of exhausted, having the energies worn out, barren of results, ineffective or unproductive. If they find the old government's effete, wrote the British statesman Edmund Burke, they may seek new ones. Do you remember from Level 7 my discussion of the sounds-like syndrome? Effete is one of its victims, and its case is particularly complicated because it is commonly confused not with one, but with 2 similar-sounding words. The first word people confuse with effete is effeminate. Some years ago, I was listening to a radio show called About Books and Writers, hosted by a syndicated columnist. The columnist asked his guest, the author of a biography of Margaret Mitchell, who wrote Gone with the Wind, whether Mitchell's fiancée was effete. Do you think she thought he meant worn out, exhausted, spent? Not for a minute. Going right along with the confusion, the biographer replied, yes, Mitchell's fiancée had many effeminate qualities. Effeminate is a disparaging term applied to men to mean womanish, unmanly, not virile. In Troilus and Cressida, Shakespeare writes, a woman impudent and mannish grown is not more loathed than an effeminate man. The second word people confuse with effete is élite. By derivation, élite means the choice or best part. The word is most often used of a group or class of persons. The élite of society comprises persons of the highest social class, sometimes referred to colloquially as snobs. I heard a good example of the confusion between effete and élite in another radio interview, this time on National Public Radio's All Things Considered. The interviewer, Susan Stamberg, was speaking with Robert Silver, the editor of the prestigious New York Review of Books, and at one point she asked him if he thought his publication was effete. Did he think she meant exhausted, ineffective, washed up? Hardly. Without a beat, he answered that although the review was challenging intellectual fare, it did not intend to be snobbish or exclusive, and was undeserving of any such reputation it might have. For those who already think effete means womanly, delicate, or over-refined, compounding that erroneous notion with the equally erroneous suggestion of snobbery or supercilious self-indulgence requires no great leap of the imagination. For millions of Americans, the confusion of effete with élite was implanted by the late Richard Nixon's otherwise unmemorable vice president, Spiro Agnew, when, in a speech assailing opponents of the Vietnam War, he uttered the now immortal words, "an effete corps of impudent snobs." Almost overnight, effete snob became a catchphrase in the war controversy, used by the hawks, who favored involvement, to disparage the doves, who were opposed to involvement. The phrase was disseminated by the media and absorbed into the nebulous national vocabulary, and as a result, effete has come to suggest elitism and snobbery, an association entirely divorced from its true meaning, depleted of energy or vigor, worn out. So, what does it mean when some of the most prominent writers, editors, broadcasters, and politicians in the country fall prey to the sounds-like syndrome? Is this a Humpty Dumpty case of a word means whatever I choose it to mean? Should we just lie back, not lay back, and say, as long as we communicate, what difference does it make? That, my verbally advantaged friend, is what is called a rhetorical question, to which you already know my answer is a resounding no. What can we conclude is afoot with effete? Though weakened by the presence in current dictionaries of such incongruous synonyms as effeminate, decadent, degenerate, and over-refined, the precise sense of this useful word is not entirely effete, exhausted, ineffective, washed up. Now that you know the story of how the sounds-like syndrome has infected effete, you must play doctor and decide how you are going to treat the word. And the next time you hear it used effeminately or by an impudent snob, perhaps you will pass along this word to the wise on the word effete. And with that remedial disquisition on a worn-out word, we come to the end of Level 9. Are you ready to crack your wisdom teeth on the final level? Good. Let's go.